Hi, my name's Sarah. I'm a conscious leadership and women in leadership coach, and I help forward thinking leaders and organizations build teams of respect, trust, open communication to build confidence and resilience for you and your organization and to become a more fulfilled leader. Okay, so very often I get asked about change, and I've had to work with teams and individuals after change, after there's been redundancy or restructuring. So, how can I be a conscious leader whilst delivering bad news or dealing with restructuring? Well, it's entirely possible for you to be a conscious leader, a leader that wants the best for his team, a leader that is forward thinking. And here's some tips on how to do that. Number one, what I want you to do is be aware of your own emotions now, feelings. Now, you might not want to admit those to everyone, perhaps write them down somewhere, but just be aware of your own stresses, your pressures, because sometimes when we're going through change, as I'm sure you are as well, if you're thinking about this question, then what happens is we feel something internally. And if we don't become aware of it, it spits out as an emotion, a reaction, a behavior, and that's not what we want. So become aware of your own emotions as a conscious leader and think about how you're going to prepare, setting the scene and the messages for any communications you may need to do. And really, it's many of the conscious leadership commitments, and commitments just means state of being. It means your state of being around compassion, empathy, listening. So there is uncertainty during these times. There is no getting away from it. And I think having that candor and honesty with your team is really important. Don't sort of try and hide what's going on. Explain the reason or the reasons for these changes, because sometimes for some people, if we don't make these changes, the company is going to have problems in the future, or the market has changed, the industry has changed, or there's all these other reasons. Then explain that, give people the vision of it. Some people might need the details, so you really need to understand your team and that individual person sitting in front of you and spend individual time with them. Listen, communicate frequently and as quickly as possible following decisions. So don't sit on things for the right time, particularly if you work in a matrix, complex organization, because you want to make sure that your team doesn't hear secondhand news, because otherwise it's like, well, why don't we know about that? People knew about that a week ago. Don't underestimate the impact of change. People have feelings. We're human beings, not human doings. There'll be fear, frustration, anger, bargaining, even, all sorts of different emotions, until hopefully people can at least start to accept the changes that might be happening. And you can't force people along this journey, but you can help them. You can help them stop feeling like they're in a washing machine of emotions. They'll go through some curves of emotions. They might go through those a couple of times, but as a leader, spending time with them, or even if they're not comfortable talking to you, a mentor, member of the HR team, they may not feel that they can be vulnerable with you, and that's fine. Don't take it personally. Maybe they just want to speak to somebody else and get a different view. So communicate frequently and often. Ask that input. Consider alternatives to redundancy. Is there a way in which, okay, could we have somebody working reduced hours until our pipeline picks up? Or could we deploy someone in a project management role or in managing the change? I've seen that happen before, where somebody's been employed to manage the project management office of change and perhaps the measurements, the dashboard, and then got on to have a great role, a better role that they wanted perhaps in a few months' time. It's like, okay, I'll take the PMO role, why not? And then they've moved into the role that they've wanted. So are there alternatives? So communicate early and often and listen. So those are just a few tips around the challenges of redundancy, restructuring, a bit about communications. If you've got any questions or you're going through this yourself, drop me a direct message or Google Sarah Jones Coaching.